I'd like to throw the panel open to questions. Who wants to go first?
Question to Charlie, about your organisation. Do you get lots of reports coming in, and do you use a database? And how do you ensure that people get the information to you? One of our problems is people not recording properly on our database.
Yeah, we are not a recording organisation. We decided that if we try to start doing that, because we're so under-resourced, it's basically me and another person, but what would happen is what's been happening anyway, is that the reports would come in, they wouldn't get processed quickly, they may not get passed on, and nothing would be acted upon. We would just become the same, we would be another blockage. So what we are doing is encouraging people to report directly to the police. That's our first line of call. All the information is on our website. If it's bird related, then the RSPB, we give the numbers to that. If it's badger related, we give the number for the Badger Trust. If it's snares, there are a number of groups working on that, and of course we also have the league number on there. So we don't actually handle that kind of information simply because I didn't think that we could, and that we wouldn't do a good enough job about it if we tried to. And I just thought it was more upfront to be honest about that, and not try and do it and not do it well.
Okay. Does that answer your question? Does anyone else on the panel want to address any of that? Gentleman over there.
Adrian Harris from Swansea. Just really a plea in a sense. I mean, Lee is one of a few people in our force area, and our force area starts on the Gloucestershire border, it finishes at the Devon border. That runs from the Severn Estuary right over to Wiltshire. So it's a really big patch, and there are 5 officers who work that patch. And Lee covers the unitary authorities of Bristol City Council, South Gloucestershire, part of North Somerset Council, Bath and North East Somerset Council. So a huge area for one person to cover. And what I'm just saying to all the groups, I know some groups have got dedicated wildlife crime officers, we don't in our force area. But what I'm saying to people is you need to do a number of things to make sure you get the best possible support from the police and for the police. And one of the things we've had to do, and I was instrumental, we talked about retraining of operatives. I talked to Inspector Justin French about 4 years ago about that, and actually that percolated through. And because we were in a situation, we'd ring up 999 and we spend 10 minutes explaining to the operator why a crime was being committed. And we virtually had to quote verbatim the Badger Act to get some action. So we've got over that big hurdle, I think, now. But the other hurdle we've got to get over is because of the lack of resource within the force area. When we report something and we go through the control room, we obviously ask for an incident number. But the crucial thing is we actually duplicate that message by sending an email to the force lead on wildlife crime. Because if it goes through the normal police procedure, it goes out to the beat manager, which might not be like someone like Lee. The chances are not, because only 5 of them. It goes to the beat manager. Unless you actually have a loop around the system to feed back into the force lead to follow up, you can actually not be sure it's going to be dealt with appropriately. And so I think there's a number of things you can learn from the situation, but it's all brought about because of lack of resource. And if you've got lack of resource, then groups are going to have to put their hands up and be counted and stand up with the police. Otherwise, we will not achieve what we're all trying to achieve.
Thank you, Adrian. Tim?
Yeah. Just on the issue of Tim Bird from Derbyshire Wildlife Trust of reporting, I think what's terribly important, I think it's fantastic we're having this discussion today, is the need for wildlife groups across the country to come together with the police on these kind of issues. I think what's clear to me, and I met the police commissioner recently with colleagues from the badger groups in Derbyshire, Alan Charles up in Derbyshire, the police force in Ripley, really positive discussions with the police, but I think it's really vital that we work together collectively as a movement to make people aware about the situation. So it's very important where we've got the birders, we've got people concerned about badgers, we have the Wildlife Trust, and I think we have to get to a situation where we get regular reporting on an annual basis on wildlife crime collectively that will really raise the profile at a national level about what's going on. Maybe that can be broken down into a county basis as well, where I can think of a number of media events we could do with the police on wildlife crime. I think it's so vital that we educate people about what's going on. There are more and more people who want to get involved with wildlife, getting out of the countryside. If you look at the numbers who are people who watch groups like Spring Watch, etc. There are many people who we can actually encourage to actually be out there, be our eyes and ears about what's going on, and report back. The question is, where do they report back to, and how can that information be collated? Because I think it's so important about educating people about the scale of the problem, and actually really looking at some high-profile media events as well, where we can collectively, as a movement, get the message across about what is happening, how it's unacceptable, and how it has to be done.
I would always encourage reporting to the National Wildlife Crime Unit, not as an alternative to reporting it to your local group manager or your local wildlife crime officer within your local constabulary, but the National Wildlife Crime Unit have that collation of information, that, gathering of intelligence that you mentioned. They are that national central brain, and very often we can get things reported to us, and it might be somebody you've never heard of. It could be an incident that's an isolated incident in your area, like the bird's eggs. Never heard of this bloke, okay, don't know anything about him. Check the national computers, nothing. You can then go to the Wildlife Crime Unit, the National Wildlife Crime Unit, and because they have people everywhere, they can have a whole host of information. So I would always, always encourage reporting to the National Wildlife Crime Unit. They have a fantastic website. They have their yearly priorities that are set, one of which is badger persecution. They're fantastic. They have an intelligence database that they can consult, and they use the same, we call it 555 intelligence grading system that the police use, because it's police officers in the National Wildlife Crime Unit. They then disseminate that information to us. So always National Wildlife Crime Unit.
Right, Charlie's going to quickly answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't actually just phone up the National Wildlife Crime Unit. They don't have a public interface.
They have a website where
Yeah,
you
they
can
have a
report
website,
on.
but yeah, but there's
You can't physically phone them up.
no. We try to report. We're very lucky. We talked to Alan Stewart a lot, who was a retired now when we set up. And one of the problems we found was, yes, you know, you want to report to these places, but there's no one there on the phone who's going to take these reports, and that's a great shame. People
have
are
submitting like an email submission where you can? I thought they had like an email submission.
I think every group in the country has email submissions.
Everybody's
they're
on email.
not being acted up on. And I personally don't blame the police on this at all. You've explained that really well. Tim Birch there was saying the same thing. He's very lucky. Alan Charles, the PCC in Derbyshire, is incredibly active. So he's a rarity, really. You know, there is a very low priority. Crimes aren't even counted in the wildlife crimes aren't even counted in the official crime statistics. It's crazy. We've got to take it seriously.
Tom,
I
Tom's
thought
going to
I'd
have a quick answer to
just
that. and-
add to that. I think the National Wildlife Crime Unit do a good job, but on limited resources, as some of you may know. I mean, they basically live hand to mouth in terms of their funding. So, you know, goodness knows how much time they have to do actually to try and get the funding for the next year just to move forward. So actually us and IFOR and World Animal Protection, quite a lot of other groups have been campaigning for them to have sustained long-term funding. So I think that's something that we can all be doing is through our elected representatives, just making those, you know, making that case that actually without that sustainable funding for National Wildlife Crime Unit, actually any of that sort of coordinating activity they do would be lost, and we'd be, you know, we put back to square one, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, the woman might get her hand up first. Yeah. I'll come back to you.
Yeah, it's Jo from Lancashire.
Yeah.
I think that the National Wildlife Crime Unit have actually stopped recording.
I was told that when
Yeah,
my wildlife crime officer
I
said
think
that.
they've stopped recording now. You can, as badger groups, can report badger crime on the Badger Trust website, but I think the National Wildlife Crime Unit have actually just stopped.
And this is a resource thing,
Yeah.
financial.
Yeah.
That's a shame because,
I mean, it's worth checking, but that was what I was told.
of course, it's just different for me approaching it because I'm approaching
Yeah.
police officers as a police officer. And when I ask them, you know, there's countless times I've asked them for help, they've helped me with intelligence, anti-dissemination. They've helped me with warrants. I phoned them up and said, I need help with a warrant that I'm doing here. They've been there, and it's a shame.
Right.
Yeah, Mike Collins from Bristol. Can I just say, I've had reason to contact the National Wildlife Crime Unit. I know the inspector. In fact, Lee was involved with a crime about a year ago, and recently I've got hold of him straight away on the telephone. So it can be done. I think it's probably, you've got particularly efficient inspectors and maybe inspectors that aren't available. So I don't think we can paint them all with the same brush. The one that comes down here is very good.
No, sorry.
Can I ask Tom, going to fox hunting? Because I see fox hunting, I live near the Berkeley Hunt, and I used to live near the Heathrow, as the sort of hub of a lot of crime and cruelty. And I'm quite a pragmatic person, and I think, how do you stop them killing foxes? Could they not have a mounted wildlife police person who has to go out with every hunt, just as the football clubs have to pay to have the football matches policed? Because there isn't any other way you're going to stop it.
So,
great idea.
I would love to.
But why can't we campaign for it?
Yeah,
Because
great,
it's the only way that they're going to feel, oh, we can't have our fun anymore.
So I think it's a
Would
good
they
idea.
take a notice?
I think. I mean, I think.
Just one at a time, please. Thank you.
Well, I want to finish.
Well, oh, sorry. Tom was already
You have to
answering.
do something. It's like you were saying about the people who've been caught and sentenced. The sentencing is much too small.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
then
I
they
would agree.
come out
Yeah.
and off they go again.
Yeah.
And that is the problem. What are the police supposed to do? We've been very naughty. So it goes on and
If
on.
they even do that.
So yeah, let me just respond to that. So yes, I mean the first point you make about police action and police activity is a concern, and we do find that forces vary, and some forces take it more seriously and some take it less seriously, and so we work to put pressure through police and crime commissioners and other means to actually force the police to take stronger action. Realistically, I don't think we're near a position where we'll have, you know, your sort of mounted police going out with the hunt on every occasion. But there's certainly a middle way that they could be actually enforced, you know, making sure the law is enforced a lot better than they do. In terms of what we need to do to actually strengthen the legislation to deter criminals, so yes, the Hunting Act, the sentencing under the Hunting Act is far too weak. It was a sort of compromise situation to get it through the Commons, but as you'll know, it doesn't allow for any statutory sentencing. So one thing that we're calling for is for the sentencing to be brought into line with other animal welfare and wildlife legislation, so that you do get a stronger incentive for people to stick to the law. There's two other things that we're calling for. One is to insert a reckless clause into the Hunting Act. So as some of you may know, a common excuse that hunts use when evidence is brought before a court is that they claim that they were trail hunting. Now, trail hunting never existed before the Act. Trail hunting is different from drag hunting. They claim they use a fox-based scent, and that the hounds then got wind of or got the scent of a real fox, and they couldn't control them. I mean, it's all, you know, crap, basically.
Screw itself on the hands on the other day.
So it's ridiculous. So what we're doing is we're calling for a reckless clause. So actually, if a hunt can be shown, even if they claim they were following a trail, if they're following a trail in say for example, in an area where foxes are known to be, and they're using a fox-based scent, if then a fox is chased, clearly they were acting recklessly. So that's the second thing. And the third thing,
Does that mean that you would ban fox urine used for the trail?
well, we don't actually believe that the trail hunting, that the use of fox urine actually exists at all. It's just a myth that the hunts use. And just finally, something particularly relevant, I think, to all of us who are passionate about badgers. Actually, the third thing we're doing is to outlaw terrier work itself, because actually that's often the worst. There's a number of things we're doing to try and strengthen the act to get these criminals.
To work with the police to know whether the police can actually enforce it.
I've got a lot of other hands up now, so I want to thank you very much for that. But I've got hands up all over here, and we've only got 5 more minutes.
All right, then.
Okay, but certainly you can talk to Tom afterwards.
Okay.
I'd like to raise the issue of proactive policing. I saw a Facebook post recently which claimed a particular hunt, which I won't name, releases a fox at 3 o'clock every day that it goes hunting, miraculously 30 yards in front of the house. Now, when you get, if you get good intelligence that might be happening, I think what a lot of people in here would like to know is why isn't that being actively pursued? Why aren't officers, if they're investigating whether that's A, reliable information, and B, if it's happening, why aren't they being more proactive? There seems to be an idea that hunts are untouchable and that police won't touch them. Lee, sorry to put you on the spot.
No, it's okay, because it's not really one I can answer, because if this has happened and it's been reported to the police, not being party to that, I can't possibly comment on the circumstances. If that was reported to me, if it was reported to me, I would look into it.
But what would looking into it actually entail? Because quite often when we report crimes, I'll give you another example. My local group was alerted to a badger set being filled in by a developer. We notified our local police officer. The person who witnessed it was the neighbour, who's the solicitor, who saw it being done, who'd spoken to the developer to say stop doing it, and had in fact received a text from the developer to say that they were going to do it. And when the police officer responded, he said, oh, I'll just have a word in their ear. So I responded and said, no, the Badger Trust is now going to watch this as a test case to see whether there is any willingness amongst the police, given rock solid evidence that it happened and a trail of evidence, will you prosecute it? Now, that's still pending. But there is a feeling amongst these groups that, you know, we report things and somehow there's always an excuse why it can't go to prosecution. So can you give us some idea of why that's happening? Is it a cultural thing? Is it a resource thing? Why
I think it's a mixture. I think it's a mixture of all sorts of things. I'd like to point out if your badger incident had been reported to me, I'm either going to be on duty or I'm not. If I'm on duty, I'm going to be available or I'm not. If I'm on duty and I'm available, I will deal with that and I will stop that development and I will gather the appropriate evidence.
Right.
If I'm not on duty, then that will have to go to whoever is on duty. Again, like you say, that will come down to resourcing. It comes down to knowledge of the legislation, which we are trying to improve from call handler level. If the call handlers understand that that's not allowed to happen, then that gives them a lot more direction in what they're going to do in handling that call. If the call handler is not aware that that's a crime, then they're going to cut it off.
Right.
Which isn't any good, is it?
Yeah.
Because I know it's a crime.
Which is why our call handlers and our control room staff have been now trained.
Is that happening to all areas?
Can I just, there's some questions over there. Can I come back to you in the 2.5 minutes I've got? Dave, you've already had one go, so the lady in front of you. Sorry, Dave.
I think that we all need, perhaps, to be pushing our police commissioners, if they still remain, or somebody, to make wildlife a target, because the police have then got more incentive to deal with it, because it's not one of their targets.
Certainly with your WCOs, your wildlife crime officers, we don't need incentive. We do this in addition to our normal roles. Yes, we do it because we want to do it, and it's something we believe should be dealt with. I think we couldn't do what we do without support from groups like you. We really couldn't.
I'm not questioning your incentive. I'm questioning the time that you're allowed to do your job.
I
You
agree.
said
If you were given more
part-time,
money,
Absolutely.
you'd do it more often.
part-time job.
I agree. I
It
agree.
needs a higher profile.
We're singing from the same song sheet with that one.
You have another 15 minutes, Mr. Chair.
Oh,
so you can use
15
your
minutes.
meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought we had to end by
Right,
6.
we've got time.
Right, relax everyone. Okay, Nigel.
2 points. As you've just said, you do it for the love of the job, you volunteered for it. There should be compulsory a certain amount of wildlife crime officers for every force. They've been cut back and cut back. They've got to be increased. Crime is crime, and that needs addressing. Going on to fox hunting, my son-in-law is in Cambridge Constabulary, and I questioned him. What is happening? Why aren't prosecutions taking place? He said, we're not allowed to. We're told to turn the blind eye. I said, well, where's that come from? It's come from the top. Where's that come from? The government.
That's the first I've heard of it.
That's
all I can
that's
say.
from a serving officer. My
Okay, the
son-in-law.
lady behind you was next. Sorry.
That's Cambridge Constabulary there.
Yes.
Really,
Really. Oh, I'm learning.
That's all right.
I'm sorry, Reen.
There was a time when you were a badger worker, you could hold a Natural England, well it wasn't Natural England then, a licence to interfere with the set, which meant that if a set had been blocked, you could unblock it. Now, we're not, those licences were taken away from us, so now you can only unblock a set under the licence held by, a blanket licence held by the police.
Yeah,
So
that doesn't do.
if you can't get in touch with your wildlife crime officer, you'd be committing an offence yourself if you unblocked the set.
We were asked to go out and collect badges yesterday.
What's
We're
that?
not licensed by the
Sorry,
police.
Lee, what's
The
that?
police
You just
have
had
to-
that.
Yeah, that's okay if you can. Yeah, if you can. That's okay if you can get hold of your wildlife crime officer. But there could be badgers underground suffocating. You know.
Okay, Reen,
You can actually then use the clause within the Badger Act that allows you to take action for the welfare of the animal.
Yeah,
If the
yeah.
animal is suffering,
Yeah.
and you've got good reason
Yeah.
to
Well,
leave them
I
suffering,
would do that
you
anyway.
unblock the set and help buggers afterwards.
I'm trying to go left to right here.
Gary Hills, Fox in Parliament. Interesting on this, in terms of relation to law. One thing, I come from a political animal lobby, so I look at it from the other side of things. What I see, and I've been doing animal welfare lobbying for like 22 years, 23 years, and I think in government. When it comes to the police, though, the problem we have some very, very good, dedicated officers. You're a prime example of someone who's dedicated, cares about the animals. But what we don't have is senior ranks who take a blind bit of notice, to be honest. They downgrade the importance. They always make out there's never enough resources without even looking at what could be done. So the crime numbers continue. The fact, and I think we're here today talking about so many issues on wildlife crime, is a prime example that it's not being dealt at a national level, regional level, or even some local. So what we need, organisations need, is a change in attitude. So there's more cooperation. There's also one of the things that really disturbs us, when organisations have hard and fast evidence of crime committed, it is dismissed. It is not followed up. Now, if those organisations are putting the time and effort and the energy and the money to get that information, they're already doing a lot of the work for the police. There's old sayings like a camera never lies. But it's the same with a video, and we've seen enough videos and everything to show sort of like legal criminal activity. But because senior attitudes hasn't changed, they don't get properly investigated, and that affects fox hunting, it affects badger baiting, terrier work. So really, what organisations are saying, the police have to work more with us to make things so we can actually work in partnership, find the resources. We can battle in the commons and everything to get you more resources, but we can't do it if there's this constant block of attitude from the senior officers in this country.
I'm going left, right, left, right. There's only one on my left. Sir.
Tom knows very well because he's got a list on. Sorry, Rob from South Derbyshire. Because I saw a list on your. If you put my MP in, who's Andrew Griffiths, who's a badger hunter, a badger killer, fox hunter, etc., etc. You put that in, you find your list of all the MPs who would support bringing back, stopping appealing the Hunting Act. So when you go down, there's like pages and pages and pages and pages of it. So there's all the Tories, there's some Liberals, SNP, Clyde Cymru, DUP, you name it. There's pages of them. So what chance have we got trying to get to the top when our MP, for example, you can't write to him about anything because you're wasting your time. I get like stuff from you a lot, so I support you, and says, "Oh, contact your MP." What a waste of time that is, because you know who your MP is, you just
keep pushing, keep pressing. That's what they want. That's what they want. They're MPs like that.
So I'd say,
keep pushing.
We obviously will have an opportunity on the 7th of May to make our I mean, we're doing we have something on our website at the moment where you can put in your postcode, you can find out where your MPs stand on a variety of animal welfare issues. We're doing some polling from Monday where we're going to be polling thousands of people around the country in marginal seats, and hopefully, and I expect to find this, that actually animal welfare is an important issue for a lot of people. I think the politicians like to think that it's a a niche small issue, but actually we're saying that in those marginal seats animal welfare can make a big difference. So I would say don't give up. Obviously make your vote count on the 7th of May, but yeah, don't let your MP ignore you or forget that you're there, and forget that you're, forgive the pun, badgering them, because that's eventually they'll get fed up and they'll do something in most cases.
Okay, Charlie just wants to come
in. I did. I just wanted to say that as individuals, it's easy for an MP to fob us off. It is, as an individual, what we haven't been doing, and this is why I'm so pleased to be here, and what I've talked about with Dominic, Tim, we had a wildlife crime conference. The RSPB has got 1 million members. The Wildlife Trust have got hundreds of thousands of members. Badger Trust, we all put that together. That is going to pressure MPs, and I know we've all been doing this a long time, and it feels like we've been doing it a long time. We're almost having to start again. We're still at the beginning, and the beginning is we get together and we do it together, and we can put pressure on them. If we give up now, that would be such a huge shame. I don't think there is a,
Very quickly, I just might add, I believe that attitudes towards animal welfare across politicians, notwithstanding the badger cult, are actually improving. So take the Conservative Party, for example. Before 2010, you only had 2 or 3 MPs that were anti-hunting. Now you have more like 25. So actually, across all parties, I think increasingly, particularly as you get younger MPs come through, they recognise that there is a humanity in animal welfare, and I think actually attitudes slowly, not as fast as we need them to, but are slowly improving.
I think the key thing is, and I think it's building on what Paul said. Sorry, Peter, I just have to interject here what's on my mind. You want mine, I know you. It's not on the curriculum. There's nothing to do with natural history or ecology, and that's where the power base is. That's where it will seep up.
It's a secret world you're building an education.
But it has to be in the curriculum.
Let's say, and this young lady at the front has been waving at me for some time. I'm really sorry, Dave. You have had one go. I will get to you if I get time.
Sorry, my subject's a little bit back in what we were talking about. It was to do with the drag hunting. I do a lot of filming myself because I feel charities do not get represented fairly when it comes to what they're trying to represent. Everything on television, they want everything to be nice and not political and in the middle, and so I go out and I film my own stuff. So a few weeks ago I went out with the Hunt Sabs and I put a balaclava on and I took a camera with me, and I witnessed firsthand a drag not being used. We saw the hunt take off. The man with the drag sat around and had a drink. He didn't move, and the hunt disappeared. All the people, the SABs, have to wear cameras because they're so scared for their safety. I've got to say, as an anonymous person, I was petrified. I honestly, there was a horrific amount of verbal violence, and I'm told that a couple of people were punched the following week and had their teeth knocked out. Halfway through the hunt, one of the redcoats fell, and it was in the newspapers because his horse rolled on top of him and broke his back. I was there, I watched it. And they just did not want the SABs to help. The SABs were so peaceful. Now, this is coming from someone that's not a SAB. I'm completely neutral. But it gave us a chance to actually confront the guys with the drag. And I was playing with all the hounds, and none of the hounds were interested in what they had in that sock. And I tell you what, I smelt it, and it wasn't fox urine, it was nothing. It was just nothing. It smelt horrible, but I've got to say that the dogs didn't give a flying buggery about what was in that sock.
Right.
Okay, so I saw it firsthand, and they didn't have a clue who I was. But just to get back to that point, what the lady was saying, I think it's important to have cameras because I didn't feel that I was safe, and important for people like that to have that backup.
I can back that up. Thank you very much. Some of the young ladies over there took me out 2 weeks ago, a week ago.
Yeah, well.
And I was just, there's a young lady just waiting who hasn't had a go yet. Do you want to have a quick go and then I can come back to you?
Hello, my name's Georgia Lake. I've come here as an individual today, but I come from the Staffordshire Badger Group. I just wanted to add on what Pauline had said about, and what yourself had said about inspire sort of teaching in the next generation and getting it to national curriculum. And I think that's something that really is important. I'm only 16. I'm still at school, and it's really quite upsetting for myself because every day I'm going to school and people like my age have no real knowledge or experience. For an example, this is just an example. Like I was walking home from school the other day with one of my friends, and I said I was talking about him, and there was a snowdrop, and she had no idea what it was at all. I mean, I know that's only a snowdrop, and that's not the end of the world, but if a child like my age can't identify a snowdrop, just imagine what that's going to be like in 10, 20 years when there's wildlife crime which they need to report and they can't even identify snowdrop, never mind wildlife.
Your age group is the missing link. Although education is important, we don't have the time to wait for those children that we teach to get to the age where they make a difference. So your age group is the one that we should be getting, but how we get it, I mean, perhaps you can give us some ideas, but that's really, really important.
Forest of Hands, we've got 2 minutes left, so you've been...
I've been waiting for ages.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry, Julie,
Yeah.
carry on, before you throw something at me.
5 more if you want 5.
5?
Yeah. I just...
I hope you're not taking it from Peter's... Right, sorry.
I was trying to respond. I was trying to respond earlier to Charlie's, what I was talking about organisations coming together and everything. And I just wanted to say to people who don't really know who I am or what Nigel and I and other people in Birmingham have done. But we organised the Birmingham Wildlife Festival, and we organised the Birmingham Badger March, where we had 2,000 people come. Hopefully lots of people from here came to our march. But what we were trying to do was really to do what Charlie was talking about, was to bring together and raise the forum, the political forum, for wildlife protests, to raise it in terms of the political agenda. And it's not just like through people like Dominic and everything. You can just come out onto the streets of Birmingham once a year. If you only came once a year, we have the press, we have the TV, we have so many people, and we have so many important people there talking, that the opportunity for you to come and raise the profile of what is needed to save the badgers and to save other wildlife, it's just there, it exists. Now, your AGM was originally scheduled next year for April 2016. Unfortunately, our event is on April 2016. That's why today that Peter couldn't give you a date for your AGM, because they kindly said that they would move it so that you could come to our event if you want to. So I'm just putting in a thing now. This time next year, I hope you're going to be in Birmingham.
Make it quick.
Just very quickly, sorry, just going back to the hunt situation. I've been out on my local hunts, and the reality is the police are there. They're not there to patrol to see if the Hunting Act has been obeyed. They are there to protect the hunters and nothing more.
Exactly, exactly.
Yes.
Sorry,
I'm Chris Wood from Hearts and Middlesex Badger Group. I just wanted to say it's really nice to hear from a wildlife liaison officer. Ours is actually really great, and it's quite sad that it's not the picture for all badger groups. But having said that, it was a previous chairman who fought to have a dedicated wildlife liaison officer. So he is on call. We have his private number. Keith goes out. Keith's on call, and will go out and answer when he wants advice about badger-related things. So it's very much a two-way thing. He comes and gives us talks, and we go and do training for our local police, and he trains the magistrates. It's another area. So it's really good. I just thought I'd say that.
I'd like to tell you what happens on a typical day's hunting and how many laws are broken, but I won't, to take too long. But I want to pick up on the gentleman in front here who talked about how we can actually influence the policing and resource of policing. And the big influence we can actually achieve through pressure, political pressure, is to get the Home Office to make wildlife crime a performance-related police offence. Yeah. And when it becomes performance-related, the police will put resources into it to keep the figures up. And that's where we got a contract. Not on the police. We can't do much against the police. I've seen the Chief Constable, I've seen the PCC, I've seen the Silver Commander, I've seen all the people in our force area, and they're all with us as far as they can be. But there's no impetus because there's no pressure put on them to be performance-related. Until the Home Office changes that, that's where we've got to put our political pressure on the Home Office.
Brilliant, thank you, Adrian.
Irene from the Mid Derbyshire Group. I mean, we're very lucky in Derbyshire, and people know from coming to our conference that the Police and Crime Commissioner in Derbyshire is very proactive and put in his manifesto is effective addressing wildlife crime. So we've always, we've a very good pedigree amongst the police in Derbyshire. But I found on an individual level, it's good to try and foster good relations, try and find out who your wildlife officer is, because they're going to have volunteered for that role because they're keen and interested. And if you can get a chance to talk to them, and if you're the sort of person who's out badger watching, even offer, you know, suggest they might like to come out with you. I've got on a, you know, you can get a relationship with them on a personal level. And in my experience, the very best and most useful wildlife officers are the ones who will go the extra mile. And I always warn them, you know, if they give me their personal number, think about it before you give it me, because sure as anything, I will probably use it at some point. But there are those that will, and they will be prepared to do things beyond their call of duty, you know. And if you have a good experience, it's worth writing to your Chief Constable and to your Police and Crime Commissioner for the county and sort of thanking them. And try and get things on a sort of better footing, rather than, I know things, I mean, things go wrong. They've gone wrong in Derbyshire sometimes, and things get screwed up on an individual level. But rather than beating them about the head about it, just focus on the good points and try and foster good relations in that respect.
Thank you. Paul, did you want to say?
No, I was going.
It's gone out, right? Okay. Anyone else?
Can I just put out an appeal to our executive, our council, whatever it is, that there are loads and loads of different wildlife organisations, and we need to get out of the box. Inevitably, each of these organisations has a specific focus. But if we actually work together to put pressure on these people as a wildlife movement, all of us, pressing on the same pressure points, we would get so much further. But we're all sectionalised in our little areas. As I say, of course we have our own different focus, but we must learn to get together, to really work together as a tide of a movement.
And when that is definitely one of, that will be on my list of
Excellent.
targets and ambitions for the trust, is that we have to join, I've heard it described as a rainbow coalition, but we really need, as a trust, to take our place in that coalition, to start talking to each other. I mean, it's already started. Really, the cull produced this convulsion of revulsion of what was going on, and organisations like GABS, which I came from, appeared out of nowhere in a very short space of time, and here I am sitting here as chairman of the Badger Trust. Now, I know for sure that we need to keep that momentum going, keep going together, because as someone else pointed out, there are millions of us, millions. We have more resources between us than the Countryside Alliance, the NFU and the Tory party put together. There is a tiny, relatively wealthy group of people in this country who are committing all the wildlife crime, who are institutionalising animal killing. But if we all got together, you know, the size of the charities and the numbers of people and the amount of money we put into wildlife, if we put that into a single pressure group, now I know as charities we can't be seen to be getting involved in politics. And maybe the solution is that we create an organisation that is political and that we fund it as all these organisations. We take our part in that. But we need to be in the corridors of power in Westminster. We need to be kicking down doors, holding ministers to account, having meetings with ACPO, so that wildlife crime officers, I mean, I'm sure Lee, if she's not allowed to say everything she'd want to say, but if we could say to her, you've got 25 officers under you and you've got a budget of $1.5 million to go and solve this problem, should be jumping for joy, because you want to do it. You're committed to the task, but until we can put the pressure on to get the government to resource people like Lee and all the other wildlife crime officers, it ain't going to happen, because, as you say, you've got too many other things on your plate. You don't have enough money, you don't have enough officers. So I completely agree with that, and it will be one of the things that the Trust will be aiming for. Okay, I think we're probably out of time now.
Yeah, I think that's probably bringing
Thank you
it to a
much.
close, so
Thank you
thank
very
you.
much, everybody.